My name is Avery Bennett. I'm 32 years old. And the strange thing about the moment your life begins to fall apart is that it doesn't feel like destruction when it starts. It feels like laughter. 3 days ago, I was standing in my younger sister's living room, holding a gift I had spent weeks putting together. Not just money. Not just things. But intention. Care. Hope, maybe. Which, in hindsight, was my first mistake. The room was bright. Sunlight poured through the windows, catching on glassware and pastel decorations that spelled out Baby Bennett in soft gold letters. Everyone was there. Cousins I barely spoke to unless they needed something. My parents, sitting side by side like neutral observers in a courtroom they refused to participate in. And my sister, Lila, glowing in that way people always describe pregnant women when they don't want to admit how complicated it really is. She looked happy. Celebrated. Loved. Everything I had spent most of my life trying to earn. I remember tightening my grip on the box before I walked over to her. It was heavier than it looked. Inside was a prepaid doula service, top-rated, carefully researched, because Lila had spent weeks complaining about hospitals and how scared she was of being alone during labor. A year-long diaper subscription, because I knew how fast those costs add up. And $3,000. Not from excess. From savings. From saying no to things I wanted so she wouldn't have to. I even lined the box with a soft muslin wrap, folded perfectly, like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Because if I was going to give, I was going to give properly. "Hey," I said, smiling as I held it out to her. The room quieted. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough for people to notice. To watch. To wait. Lila took the box slowly. She opened it carefully, like she was expecting something fragile. And for a moment, for just a second, I thought maybe this time would be different. She looked at each item. The paperwork, the envelope, the note I had handwritten and tucked inside. Her expression didn't change. Not soft. Not surprised. Just unreadable. Then she looked up at me and smiled. "Are you trying to buy your way into my life?" Her voice wasn't quiet. It wasn't private. It carried. Effortlessly. Across the room. For a second, I didn't understand the words. Not because they were complicated, but because they didn't fit. Not with what I had given. Not with what I had meant. Then she laughed. Light. Sharp. Like it was obvious. Like it was funny. And the room followed. A ripple at first. Then louder. Even my mother, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, let out a soft chuckle into the rim, like she was trying to hide it, but not enough to actually stop. I stood there, still holding the edge of the box, still waiting for someone, anyone, to say something, to shift, to break the moment. No one did. That's when something inside me didn't snap. It didn't shatter. It just stopped. I reached forward, gently, took the box back out of her hands, smiled. Not forced, not bitter, just done. "I guess I overspent," I said. No one laughed that time, but no one apologized either. 10 minutes later, she was across the room talking about nursery paint colors like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been reduced to a punchline in front of everyone who was supposed to be mine. By then, I was already outside, sitting in my car, engine off, phone in my hand. I opened the first app, canceled the doula service. The confirmation email came instantly. Then the diaper subscription. Closed the account. Refund processed. Then the transfer. $3,000 back into my savings. Clean. Simple. Reversible. Unlike everything else. I sat there for a moment after, looking at the screen, waiting to feel something. Anger. Sadness.
Embarrassment.
Nothing came. So I opened one more app. The rent portal. Lila's apartment. The one I had helped her secure. The one my name was still attached to. The one I had been quietly covering half of because she said her boyfriend Marcus was between opportunities. I paused. Just for a second. Not because I doubted myself, but because I realized something. This wasn't reaction. This was correction. I canceled the payment. Removed my account.
Closed access.
Then I started the car and drove home. By the time I got there, my phone had already lit up. 3 texts from Lila. 2 missed calls. I didn't read them. Didn't listen. Didn't respond. I knew what they would say. Confusion first. Then anger. Then blame. That night, my mother called. I answered. Not because I wanted to, but because some habits take longer to break than others. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't ask what happened. Didn't ask why. She went straight to it. "How could you embarrass your sister like that?" she said, her voice tight with controlled disappointment. "It was her baby shower, Avery. You made it about you." I let her talk. Listened as she explained how emotional Lila was. How pregnancy changes people. How I should have been more understanding. More patient. More forgiving. Like I always had been. When she finally stopped, I said something I had never said out loud before. Not to her. Not to anyone. "I'm done." Silence. Not shocked. Not confused. Just empty. Then the line went dead. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and opened my photo gallery.
Scrolled.
Slowly. Birthdays. Holidays. Moving days.
Celebrations.
And in almost every picture, there I was. Not in the center. Not being celebrated. In the background. Holding something. Carrying something. Fixing something. Paying for something. Smiling. I realized something then. Something so obvious it almost felt embarrassing. I had built my place in that family on usefulness. And the moment I stopped being useful, I became disposable. I set my phone down, leaned back, closed my eyes. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt anymore. I was just finished. And being finished was only the beginning. Because the thing about walking away quietly is that people don't notice until they realize they can't follow you anymore. And when they do, that's when the real noise starts. 3 days later, someone knocked on my door. Hard. Heavy.
Impatient.
I already knew who it was before I opened it. My father. And he didn't look like he had come to talk. He looked like he had come to collect. "What the hell did you think you were doing?" he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door behind him slowly. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. Because whatever this was about to become, I wasn't going to be the same person they remembered. Not anymore. My father, Richard Bennett, stood in the middle of my living room like the room itself owed him an apology. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes narrowed in that familiar way that used to make me explain myself before I even knew what I'd done wrong. "What the hell did you think you were doing?" he repeated. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Not even, "Can we talk?" Just accusation. Straight to the verdict. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "You walked into my apartment without asking." His face shifted. Not much. Just enough. Because that wasn't the answer he expected. This isn't about your apartment. It is now. He scoffed, like boundaries were something people invented when they wanted attention. Then he started. Family.
Loyalty. Timing. Respect.
How Lila cried for hours after I left. How humiliating it was for her. How I should have known better than to upset a pregnant woman. How the baby had nothing to do with it. How what I did was cruel.
Disproportionate.
Selfish.
I let him speak. I let every word pass through the room without catching it. Because for the first time, I understood something. He wasn't there to understand me. He was there to return me to my assigned role. Useful. Quiet. Sorry. When he finally paused, I asked, "When was the last time you did something for me without being asked?" He blinked, like I'd changed languages. What? When, I said slowly, was the last time you helped me because you wanted to? Not because it benefited someone else. Not because Mom told you. Not because it made you look good. Just me. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. Because the truth was sitting right there between us. Heavy. Old. Uninvited. This was the same man who forgot to pick me up from school when I was 10 and acted irritated when I cried. The same man who missed my college graduation dinner because Lila had a bad week. The same man who once told me I was low maintenance, like neglect was a compliment. He looked away first, then said, "Don't be dramatic." And there it was. The family anthem. I walked to the door and opened it. He stared at me. "You're really doing this?" "No," I said. "You all did this. I'm just done paying for it." He didn't leave right away. Men like my father never liked realizing a room no longer belonged to them. But eventually, he stepped out. I closed the door, locked it, then blocked his number. The fallout came fast. First, a cousin texted, "Hey, heard things got weird at the shower. You okay?" It sounded kind. It wasn't. It was fishing. Then one of my mother's friends sent a long message about forgiveness, grace, and how babies should bring families together. Then another cousin wrote that Leela was fragile right now and I should stop punishing everyone. Everyone. That word almost made me laugh. Because apparently, everyone meant Lila. My parents. Marcus. The people who laughed. The people who watched. The people who benefited from me. But somehow, it never meant me. By the end of the week, I knew the story they were telling. I was unstable. Jealous.
Bitter.
A cruel older sister who couldn't stand not being the center of attention. Lila became the wounded pregnant woman. Marcus became the protective boyfriend. My parents became heartbroken mediators. And I became the villain. The only thing missing from their version was the truth. No one asked for it. Not once. So I stopped offering. I stopped answering texts. Stopped returning calls. Stopped defending myself to people who had already decided my silence was guilt. And once I stopped responding to my family, something strange happened. I started seeing the same pattern everywhere. At work, I stopped staying late for coworkers who treated my time like office furniture. I stopped covering shifts for people who came in hungover and called it having a rough morning. I stopped organizing birthday lunches, retirement cards, surprise cupcakes, charity raffles. A guy from accounting joked, "Avery, what happened? Midlife crisis?" I smiled and said, "Something like that." Another coworker said I seemed colder. Maybe I was. Or maybe warmth had just become too expensive. Outside work, I started small. A friend texted asking if I could help her move. I didn't answer for 6 hours. Then I wrote, "Sorry, I can't." No explanation. No guilt paragraph. No promise to make it up later. Just no. It felt strange. Then clean. I declined a birthday dinner I would have attended out of obligation. Canceled a weekend trip with someone who always forgot her wallet. Muted family chats. Deleted numbers. Unfollowed people who only remembered me when they needed something lifted, fixed, paid, or forgiven. Every little no became easier. Not joyful. Not triumphant. Just necessary. Like removing splinters I had mistaken for parts of myself. Then the baby came early. I didn't hear it from Lila. Not from my mother. Not from my father. I found out because Aunt Carol posted a blurry hospital photo on Facebook. A newborn wrapped in pale blue. Tiny face. Closed eyes. The caption read, "Welcome to the world, little miracle." I stared at the picture for a long time, waiting. For guilt.
Tenderness.
Anything. Nothing came. Only a quiet, almost frightening certainty. They had not wanted me there. So I stayed away. 2 days later, my mother called. I didn't answer. Then came a voicemail. Then another. By the fifth one, I listened. Her voice was tight.
Control.
The way it got when she wanted to sound reasonable, but was barely holding back anger. "Avery, we need to talk. There are things we need to clear up. This has gone far enough. It's time to put this behind us." Put this behind us. Not apologize. Not understand. Not repair. Just bury. Like always. I didn't call back. Then Marcus texted. His message was short.
Ugly.
Exactly like him. He said if I didn't step up and do the right thing, they'd make sure everyone knew what kind of woman I really was.
Selfish. Vengeful.
A coward. He said I had abandoned my own blood. I saved the message. Didn't respond. But something in me went still. Because that text didn't sound like hurt. It sounded like a warning. A week after the baby was born, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. My name written across the front in shaky handwriting. Inside was a printed photo of the baby. No note. No explanation. Just the picture. I held it for a moment. Then placed it face down on the table. I didn't throw it away immediately. Not because it changed my mind. Because I needed to be honest with myself. That baby was innocent. He hadn't laughed at me. He hadn't used me. He hadn't chosen this family. But innocence did not make him a key they could use to reopen my cage. So I slid the photo into a folder. Not a memory folder. An evidence folder. Because by then I understood this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was pressure. And pressure leaves marks. The next morning, someone tried to access my bank account. Then my Amazon. Then an old streaming account I hadn't used in months. Password reset emails came one after another. My skin went cold. I changed every password. Turned on two-factor authentication. Called the bank. Locked my credit. Checked old devices. Removed saved payment methods. By 3 a.m, my laptop screen was the only light in the apartment. And I remember thinking, this is what it costs to say no to people who thought they owned your yes. A few days later, my landlord texted me. Someone had called pretending to be me. Asked about my lease. Asked whether someone else could move in under my name. Asked what would happen if I changed my mind about the apartment connected to Lila. That was when fear finally arrived.
Quiet. Cold. Practical.
Not panic. Not tears. Just the sharp understanding that they were no longer trying to guilt me. They were testing doors. I thanked my landlord. Told him to give no information to anyone. Then I ordered a new lock. A hallway camera. And a notebook. On the first page, I wrote the date. Under it, this is not drama. This is documentation. Because they had made one mistake. A serious one. They assumed that because I had been generous, I was weak. But generosity had taught me patience. It had taught me details. It had taught me how to remember every date, every payment, every promise, every receipt. And now, I was going to remember everything. That night, I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I named it Evidence. Then I saved Marcus's text, my mother's voicemail, the photo, the login attempts, the message from my landlord. One by one.
Neat. Labeled. Chronological.
For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. Not because I felt safe. Because I finally had a plan. But I didn't know yet how far they were willing to go. I didn't know they would come after my job, my home, my name. And I definitely didn't know that the person who would save me was the one relative I had stopped expecting anything from. The first sign that things were about to get worse was how quiet everything suddenly became. No new messages, no missed calls, no passive-aggressive posts floating through extended family circles, just silence. The kind that feels less like peace and more like someone holding their breath before they move. It lasted 3 days. On the 4th, my car window was shattered. I had just stepped out of work, keys in hand, already halfway through mentally planning dinner, when I saw it. Glass everywhere. The back passenger window, completely gone. Tiny, glittering pieces scattered across the seat, the floor, even the dashboard, like some kind of violent snowfall. I stopped a few steps away. Didn't rush. Didn't panic. Just observed. Nothing was missing. My gym bag was still there. My wallet untouched. Even the loose change in the console hadn't been disturbed. This wasn't theft. This was a message. I walked closer. And that's when I saw the paper, tucked neatly under the windshield wiper. Clean. Flat.
Deliberate.
Printed, not handwritten. No fingerprints. No smudges. I pulled it free and read, "You can pretend we don't exist, but we're still your family. That baby is still your blood. Grow up." I stared at the words for a long time. Long enough for people in the parking lot to start noticing. To slow down. To glance over. Then look away quickly, like whatever was happening to me might be contagious. That was the moment it finally settled in. Not emotionally. Logically. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to scare me. And fear only works if you respond the way they expect. So I didn't. I folded the paper, put it in my bag, took photos of the damage, called the police, filed a report, answered questions calmly. "Do you have any enemies?" the officer asked. I almost smiled. "No," I said. Then after a beat, "Just family." He gave me a look. The kind people give when they think you're joking. I wasn't. That night, I ordered a dash cam. Not the cheap kind. The kind with motion detection, full coverage, backup battery. I installed it myself the next morning. Then I upgraded the locks on my door, added a hallway camera, and backed up every file in my evidence folder to 2 separate drives. Preparation wasn't paranoia. It was strategy. 2 days later, my building's mailroom got hit. Packages torn open. Letters scattered. Neighbors complained in the group chat. Security blamed a random incident. But when I went downstairs, every piece of damaged mail belonged to me. My name. My address. My life. Ripped open. Stepped on. Left there like a statement. There was one envelope I didn't recognize. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Family doesn't give up. Why do you? I added it to the folder. Took photos. Logged the date. The time. The sequence. Still no response. That was the part they didn't understand. They thought escalation would pull me back in. Force me to react. To plead. To negotiate. But every move they made just confirmed I had been right to walk away. Then came the real hit. Tuesday morning.
HR.
Do you have a moment, Avery? The phrase everyone pretends is neutral, until it isn't. I followed them into a small conference room. Glass walls. Blinds half drawn. A bottle of water placed carefully in front of me like this was supposed to feel supportive. My manager sat across from me. HR beside her, both wearing the same expression.
Concern. Distance. Caution.
We received an email, HR said gently. Anonymous. Of course it was. They explained.
Carefully. Professionally.
Vague language wrapped in corporate politeness. The email claimed I had anger issues, that I had made threats toward my family, that someone was concerned I might bring that instability into the workplace. No specifics. No evidence. Just implication. We're not saying we believe it, my manager added quickly, but we have to document these things. Of course they did. Companies don't protect truth. They protect liability. I understand, I said. And I meant it. Because I knew exactly where it came from. Lila. Marcus. Maybe even my parents. Anyone who needed me to look unstable to justify what they were doing. The meeting ended without consequences. No suspension. No warning. Just awareness. But that was enough. Because after that day, people looked at me differently. Not dramatically. Not openly. Just slightly more careful. More distant. Conversations ended faster. Invitations stopped. Smiles didn't quite reach the eyes. Reputation is currency. And mine had just been quietly devalued. That night, I sat in my apartment with the lights off. Laptop open. Evidence folder glowing on the screen. I scrolled through everything. The messages. The voicemails. The photos. The timelines. And something shifted. Not emotionally.
Strategically.
Up until that moment, I had been defending.
Documenting. Protecting. Reacting.
But defense assumes the other side gets to keep attacking. I closed the folder, sat back, and asked myself one simple question. What happens if I stop absorbing this and start redirecting it? The answer came faster than I expected. I wasn't going to fight them emotionally. I wasn't going to argue.
Explain.
Convince.
I was going to take control. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not dramatically. Not in panic.
Calm. Clear. Prepared.
I laid everything out. The harassment. The vandalism. The impersonation attempts. The workplace complaint. The pattern. She listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't rush. When I finished, she leaned back slightly and said, "You've done something most people don't." "What's that?" "You kept records." I almost laughed, because, of course I had. She explained my options. Restraining orders. Formal complaints. Civil action. Steps to legally separate myself from shared obligations. "I'm not sure I want to sue," I said. "You don't have to," she replied. "But you do need leverage."
Leverage.
That word stayed with me. Because that's what had always been missing. They had relied on emotion, on guilt, on history, on the assumption that I would always choose peace over power. Not anymore. So I made a list. Names, connections, points of vulnerability, legal ties,
Financial ties.
and at the top of that list wasn't Lila. It was my mother. Because she wasn't just part of this. She was the center of it. The one who minimized, redirected,
Excused.
The one who turned everything into something I was supposed to forgive. If I wanted control, I had to start where the influence lived. That night, I began going through everything again. But this time, not as someone trying to survive it, as someone preparing to end it. Old messages. Deleted chats were covered from backups. Emails. Screenshots. Every piece told a story. Not of one bad moment. Not of misunderstanding. But of a pattern.
A system.
A dynamic built over years. And then, something happened I didn't expect. When I got home the next evening, there was a car parked in my spot. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A neighbor. A delivery. But as I got closer, I saw the man inside. He turned his head, smiled, and my stomach dropped. Uncle Victor? I hadn't seen him in years. He lived out of state, never came to holidays, never involved himself in family dynamics. At the time, I thought he didn't care. Now, I wasn't so sure. He stepped out of the car, didn't hug me, didn't ask questions. Just held out a small flash drive. "You'll want to see what's on this," he said. That was it. No explanation. No warning. He got back into the car and drove away. I stood there for a long time, just holding it. Because something told me whatever was on that drive was going to change everything. And for the first time since this all started, I felt something close to anticipation. Not fear. Not anger. Something sharper. Control. Before the flash drive right away, I set it on the kitchen counter, walked past it, turned on the lights, poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. Because something in me understood. Once I pressed open, there was no going back to not knowing. For years, I had operated on instinct, on patterns, on the quiet, gnawing sense that something wasn't right. That love in my family came with conditions I couldn't quite name. This felt like proof. I sat down, plugged it in, waited. A folder appeared. Dozens of files. Videos. Audio clips. Screenshots. Emails. My hand hovered over the mouse for a second. Then I clicked. The first file was an audio recording. My mother's voice. Light. Almost amused. I mean, she'll do it. She always does. You just have to ask the right way. A pause. Then Lila's voice. Laughing. She's like a backup plan with legs. I didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. I just listened. Another clip. My father this time. Flat.
Dismissive.
Avery doesn't need much. She's used to being alone. A third. Marcus. If we push a little harder, she'll fold. People like her always do. I exhaled slowly. Still calm. Still steady. Because hearing it out loud didn't break me. It clarified everything. I kept going. Screenshots of group chats I had never been part of. Messages where they dissected conversations with me. Planned what to say. What tone to use. How to make me feel guilty enough to agree. There was even a thread about the baby shower. Don't let her make it about herself. If she brings something big, call it out. She needs to understand her place. I paused there. Read that line again. Her place. Not my role. Not my relationship. My place. Something assigned.
Controlled. Enforced.
I clicked the next file. An email draft. The one sent to my workplace. Same phrasing. Same vague accusations. Same careful tone designed to sound concerned, but damaging. And at the bottom, a message from Marcus. Send it from the burner. Don't overdo it. Just enough to make them watch her. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and for the first time since all of this started, I felt something shift completely. Not anger, not pain.
Relief.
Because the doubt was gone. There was no misunderstanding, no miscommunication, no overreaction. This wasn't a family falling apart. This was a system that had been working exactly as designed. And I had finally stepped out of it. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't the same person who had sat down at that table. I wasn't reacting anymore. I had leverage. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I have proof, I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then, tell me everything. I did. Every file, every voice recording, every message. When I finished, she didn't hesitate. This changes everything, she said. Options expanded. Leverage increased. Control shifted. We can file formal complaints, pursue harassment claims, possibly more depending on how far you want to go. How far can I go? I asked. As far as you're willing to follow through. That was the question, wasn't it? Not what I could do, but what I wanted. I didn't want headlines. Didn't want a public war. Didn't want revenge in the way they understood it. I wanted control.
Final. Unquestionable.
So, I made a decision. I wrote letters. Not emotional. Not dramatic.
Precise.
One for my mother. One for my father. One for Leela. One for Marcus. Each one stated facts.
Clear. Undeniable.
I told them what I had. What I could prove. What would happen if the harassment continued? I didn't threaten. I didn't plead. I informed. And with each letter, I attached a single piece of evidence. A voice clip. A screenshot. A moment they thought would never leave the room it was created in. Just enough. Then I ended each letter the same way. I am not part of this family anymore. I mailed them. And then I left. No dramatic goodbye. No final message. I turned off my phone, booked a small place out of town, and disappeared for a week. No calls. No notifications. No noise. Just silence. Real silence. When I came back, everything had changed. No messages. No missed calls. No strange activity on my accounts. No new damage. Nothing. It was like someone had flipped a switch. The chaos stopped. But control like that doesn't disappear. It shifts. 3 days later, I received an envelope. My parents' address on the back. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Family meeting. Sunday, 4 p.m. No drama, just talk. I stared at it for a long time. After everything, that's what they chose? A meeting. Like this was a misunderstanding. Like we were coworkers resolving a scheduling conflict. I almost didn't go. But the night before, I found myself thinking about the baby. My nephew. Not as a symbol, not as leverage. As a person. Someone who didn't choose any of this. And I realized something. This wasn't about fixing anything. It was about proving to myself that I meant what I said. So Sunday came. 4 p.m. I parked outside my parents' house, walked up the driveway, rang the bell. My father opened the door, stepped aside without a word. Inside, everyone was already there. My mother, Lila, Marcus, and Uncle Victor. He met my eyes, gave a small nod. Not support, not approval.
Acknowledgement.
The room was quiet, heavy.
Controlled.
No one raised their voice. No one interrupted. Because this time, they knew. My mother spoke first. "We made mistakes," she said carefully. "Things got out of hand. Out of hand. Like it had slipped. Like no one had been guiding it. We didn't expect it to go this far." I almost smiled. My father nodded along. Lila kept her eyes down. Marcus didn't speak at all. Then my mother asked, "What do you want, Avery?" And there it was. Not an apology. A negotiation. I stood there for a moment, let the silence stretch. Then I said, "I'm not here to forgive you." The words landed clean.
Sharp. Final.
I'm not here to help. Not with the baby, not with money, not with anything. Lila shifted, started to speak. I raised a hand. She stopped. "You burned me," I said, looking directly at her. "Then you tried to bury me." Her eyes filled, but I didn't stop. "I'm still here."
Silence.
So here's what happens next. I laid it out.
Clear.
Structured. No more financial requests. Ever. No surprise visits. No messages through other people. No rewriting what happened. And above all, respect, I said. Not when it's convenient. Not when you need something. Always. My father shifted, like he wanted to argue. He didn't. My mother nodded slowly. Because they knew. I had everything. When I turned to leave, no one followed. No one tried to stop me. I walked out, got in my car. And for the first time in a long time, I rolled the windows down. Not for symbolism. Just to feel the air. That was 6 months ago. Since then, nothing has gone back to the way it was. They don't ask me for money. They don't call unless I answer first. They invite me to things, but they don't expect me to come. And when they talk about me now, they're careful. Because they know I'm not the same person. Not the one who said yes. Not the one who stayed. Not the one who gave until there was nothing left. Now, they respect me. Maybe they even fear me a little. But more importantly, I respect myself. And I'm not going back.